Welcome back, guys, to the Max Out Show. So today, let's talk about one of the key practices to living a truly fulfilled, happy, abundant, and joyful life, which is to give yourself over completely to the tasks and activities and things that you love most in your life, the things that make you come alive. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the most effective and at the same time vastly underutilized practices of all happy people is they simply spend more time in pursuits and activities that make them come alive. The things where essentially time flies by. They forget about everything else in the world. The to-do lists, what's for dinner tonight, other challenges, their worries and fears, and they're just so present and monomaniacally focused on what they're doing in this very moment. Now, psychologists call this experience flow. And what they have found is that people dramatically and drastically misunderstand and misjudge what actually makes them happy. When you ask most people, what they'll tell you is what makes them most happy is, these passive, receptive, relaxing times where they're sitting on a couch, eating junk food, watching movies, going on social media, where essentially they're being bombarded by external stimuli. And most people think that that's what brings them the most joy. But if you really look at the research, what we find is that what actually makes people come alive is not these passive, receptive, relaxing times where you're sitting on a couch, but it's rather active times where you engage in pursuits that push you to your mental or your physical capacities in a pursuit of something that matters to you. Meaning it's, for example, the person going skydiving. It is so present, so focused in the moment for these 5 minutes when they're jumping out of the airplane. It's the musician or the artist creating their pieces of work when they're so engaged in this physical battle or mental battle rather of trying to get the best out of themselves, right? Or it's the athlete running the marathon that is so engaged in this mental and physical battle of just pushing themselves out of their comfort zone over and over and over again with every step, that they forget about everything else and they're just so present and so focused on just moving a little bit further, a little bit faster with every single passing second. That is ultimately what brings us the most joy and the most fulfillment in life. And yet most people think that, of course, these elite athletes, these adventurers, those are guys, known usually for getting into a sense of flow, as researchers call this. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he's the world's leading researcher on this. And what he has found is that the sense of flow, the moment when everything, vanishes, when time flies and you're just so present, what he has found is that flow is the highest state of human experience. So people will pick flow over any other experience in the world, over sex, over alcohol, over drugs, over watching TV, over eating junk food, over anything else. Because it's so addictive and it feels so good and it fuels our human spirit. And so, people always think that we need to be these extreme athletes, right? Jumping out of airplanes or running marathons in order to access this. But the truth is that throughout your day, all of us have opportunities to get more experience of flow and into our lives if we just deliberately schedule it. And so what we really want to make sure now is that you get absolutely clear on what exactly are these activities for you that make you come most alive. And then we want to make sure that you have space in your life to actually put them into practice. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, what are these activities in my life that make me come most alive? Those may be athletic pursuits, it may be creative pursuits, it may be gardening, it may be talking to friends, it may be adventures, it may be going out in nature, it may be reading a good book, it may be dancing, whatever it is for you. Really get clear on what are these activities in my life where I just totally got lost in this moment. I could spend hours and hours in there and I never want to stop. And this is really one of the keys. One of my mentors once said to me that, happiness is when you don't want the present moment to end. When you're so happy right now with what you're doing, you don't ever want this to end, right? We as human beings, we're always looking in the future. We always say, well, in 10 days when it's this cool thing, then I'm going to be happy. In a year from now, when I finally achieve my goal, then I'll be happy. But what if you could be happy right now in the present moment, doing what you love most, right? This is really key. And so another key idea here is really that, this time that you spend in a happy pursuit, it doesn't need to be productive. It doesn't need to be a productive time for it to be a useful, a great use of your time, right? So we always do things in our lives to get something else, right? We study so we get better grades. We work out so we get in shape. We go to work and, do all the stuff there, work on a project so we get money. But happiness, one of my mentors said, is useless, meaning it's the end result. We don't do happiness for something else, but we do happiness for happiness' sake because it feels good. It fuels us. It fuels our soul. It makes us come alive. It makes us feel like there's a purpose and a meaning to life. And so, of course, in other videos, I've talked about the fact that when our brain is in a happy state of mind, every single other outcome in our lives, was it business related or personal related, also improves because our brain is in a peak state then for long-term goals and progress. But that's not what this is about. Engaging in happy pursuits largely is really enough because it makes us feel alive. It makes us happy. So really just think about these activities in your life that make you feel come alive, right? And then once you have some of these, ask yourself, how can you deliberately schedule them into your day-to-day or week-to-week life? Because what gets scheduled also gets done. It's so easy to overlook these things as, unproductive time and to not schedule them. But the truth is that happy time is one of the greatest things that you can use in your life. And so deliberately, looking through your calendar, finding slots of time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe even 3 hours that you can deliberately spend on just, engaging in these pursuits and being totally and blissfully happy and joyful. This is one of the greatest uses that you can make of the time that you have on a daily basis. And so after scheduling that time in your calendar, the third key really is, how can you block out everything else? Because the key to getting into flow is getting rid of everything that may stop you from it. Getting rid of all the distractions. Your phone, your TV, your social media, maybe even other people. Because if you think about it, would you imagine someone that, is going to jump out of an airplane to get this, thrill of, flow? Would you imagine that person checking their phone while they're walking up to the edge of the airplane ready to jump? Hell no, right? Hell no. They'd be so focused on the present moment. And if you and I, we want to access flow in our day-to-day lives while at work or wherever else, well then we've got to make sure that we block out all distractions. We get rid of everything else, all the sounds and all the noise, and we can just monomaniacally focus on the present moment. And when you can do that, when you can deliberately get clear on the activities that make you come most alive, where you can challenge yourself to the utmost levels of your mental or physical capacities, if you can schedule these things into your life on a daily basis, and lastly, if you can block out all distractions so you can truly be present, engaged in what you're doing, well, what you're going to experience is that by deliberately creating flow like this in your life, you live a much happier, more joyful, more present, and more fulfilled life. And that's my wish for all of you guys today. All the best, and see you soon.